Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm actually currently in the middle of my Carrie review from Stephen King that I will be putting out in the next few days. But I just finished this book, Black Mouth by Ronald Malfi last night, and I'm so excited to talk about it. So I kind of was like, all right, we're doing this first while it's fresh in my mind. So this is going to be like a spoiler-free review. At the end, I'm going to get into spoilers, simply just to talk about some scenes that really stuck with me and a few things that didn't completely work for me. So if you've read the book, stick around to the end because I would really love to kind of talk about this with some of you who have read it. So I'm not going to give away too much of what it's about because I want you to go into it, completely going in blind. But, I'll give you kind of like what the back of the book says. So it's about, a group of characters. They're in adulthood now, and some weird situations and things that are occurring lead them back to their childhood home in their neighborhood where a lot of messed up stuff happened, and specifically something with a kind of weird homeless guy slash magician in the woods, and where he teaches them magic, and it connects to present day, and it's a spooky, really good read. There's definitely parallels to Stephen King's It because it is a story, about, where there's childhood coming of age, but then it's also when they're adults. And obviously, it's them kind of dealing with this like evil that they had to experience as a kid. So you know, there's definitely parallels, but they're two very different books. But if you like it, you're gonna like this book. Um, so I was just really, really impressed. This is my first Ronald Malfi novel. I heard, if you like Stephen King, you need to read this, and yeah, I was not disappointed at all. Um, I see a lot of parallels between him and like early Stephen King, and I love early Stephen King. But it's not like he's ripping him off. I don't want that idea to get out there that like, oh, this guy's just a wannabe. I think clearly he's probably a fan of Stephen King. I think he's definitely inspired by him, but he's his own author, and he's got his own style. I feel like as far as like his writing style goes, it does remind me of Stephen King's, but you know, it feels like there's almost a little bit more sophistication to his writing than Stephen King, and that's saying a lot because Stephen King is my favorite author of all time. So I think there's points where I'm like, oh wow, this feels a little bit more sophisticated, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not so good. I felt, if I'm going to be nitpicky here, I felt like there were some times where he used like really obscure vocabulary just to make it seem a little bit more sophisticated. And, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. That's really an opinion thing. For me, um, I'm all for some words I got to look up, but there were a few times where I'm like, really, you had to use that word? It seems a little bit weird. Um, but let's talk about what I like about the book, and there's a lot. Characters were great. Dennis, the main character's brother, is my favorite character in the book. When you read it, I think you'll agree. The antagonists were really scary. Just I'm gonna remember these characters for a long time because they were genuinely creepy. And I thought, Mia and Clay, Jamie's our main characters' childhood friends. I thought they were great. They were all likable. They were all relatable. So I thought he nailed it with the characters. And this book's like 430 pages, and I was into him page one. I felt like, if anything, and I think this was intentional, I felt like Jamie, our main character, wasn't that likable for a majority of the book, but I kind of feel like that was intentionally done for his character arc. So let me know if you agree, if you've read the book. Um, I thought the story was just really interesting. There was a lot of things that happened in the book that I did not think were going to happen. I think he kind of, leads us a direction to kind of fool us a little bit, and I loved it. So plot was great, characters were great, and I thought I was happy with the ending too. So I think if you have not read this book, you absolutely have to. I will say the only people that I wouldn't recommend this book to is if you're like super sensitive to disturbing things. Um, but if you're kind of super sensitive into disturbing things, you probably aren't interested in horror books in the first place. There are some parts where it's pretty dark, pretty gritty, pretty dark, and definitely disturbing. So if you're someone who's like sensitive to that, maybe this isn't the book for you. But if you're not, you absolutely have to read this. This is my first 5-star book of the year, and this is my 16th book of the year. So I'm not just throwing out 5 stars. You really got to impress me, and this book did that. So check this book out. I am going to talk about spoilers now. So if you have not read the book, definitely click away and revisit this when you get the chance. So let's start with the spoilers. Okay, man, the scene where, the antagonist stole. First off, the first scene with him putting bleach in the dog's eyes, you instantly hate this guy. Who the heck does that? That instantly put like a knot in my stomach. But the scene that really sticks out for me with him, Stole, is when he just absolutely destroys that woman in the parking lot. And it describes like him like knocking out each tooth and like bashing her in the face with this rock, dragging her into the woods. I mean, this is a level of dark that I haven't seen from Stephen King. So I know we make comparisons to Stephen King, but this feels darker than Stephen King. It's just really disturbing at times. I'm like, oh my God. So that guy's horrifying, really horrifying. Um, so that's definitely a scene that stood out to me. I want to talk about the few things that I wasn't 100% in love with. Now, I know I said it's a 5-star read, but it's not perfect, at least in my opinion. And I'm going to talk about the few things that I felt like were a little weird, and I would like to know, if you guys agree with me on this. So, towards the end of the book, when they find the well, under the barn or the farmhouse or whatever it is, there's a scene with like the hippo. For me, that felt like so out of left field. I was a little worried when I read that because I'm like, okay, what's happening here? Like, is the rest of this book gonna take this weird turn? And I mean, I like weird. It just felt really random. Like everything felt super, um, like there was this realism to it, but with that supernatural in there. This just felt like out of left field, like so unrealistic. I'm like, what's happening here? So the hippo scene didn't work for me. Um, but it instantly got better with the next scene where all those like dead kids and he's doing magic tricks to try to like, oh, that part was so good. Um, so yeah, that part didn't work for me. And another part um, was at the ending with Dennis's death. I mentioned that Dennis was my favorite character. I don't have a problem that he died. I've read plenty of books where characters that I love die. It just felt like super random, So maybe if I'm missing something, fill me in the comments because it just felt like, oh, they conquered what they did in the well. They came back out. They're in the house, and then he's just dead. It was like, and I get he Ronald Malfi tries to justify this by like, he trapped all the evil down there in his turtle shell. So if Dennis dies, then we can think that maybe all that evil dies with him. I just didn't think that had to happen. I think when everything kind of comes crashing down and they escape, I feel like it could have just been trapped down there and that's all good. It just felt like, oh, okay, Dennis is dead. And like when you have a character you like so much, you want the death to feel a little bit more meaningful and a little bit more epic. At least I do. So let me know if you agree or disagree with that take. And the last thing that I'm going to say that I wasn't super, you know, in love with was, so this book, Jamie, he's an alcoholic, and they make that very clear throughout the entirety of the novel, and that's cool. That's fine. I get why that's part of it, right? It's part of his inner demons he has to conquer. But I really just started to have like a little bit of a issue with it when the last like 2 pages of the book was like holding the reader's hand, and they're like, see, like his battle with alcohol is kind of like a metaphor for blackmouth. And so I just felt like we could make that connection ourselves. It felt a little bit like hand-holdy, and nothing enough to take away from the book. I still give it 5 stars, but that was like, okay, yeah, I think we got that. So it's kind of felt like, thinking the reader is kind of dumb or something. I don't know. But back to the good. I mean, this book is a 5-star read. Like I said, so far, book of the year. I love it. I'm definitely going to be reading more Ronald Malfi. I hope, they're kind of on the same level as this, because if it is, man, I got a lot of good reading to do. So let me know your thoughts about the book if you've read it. Do you give it 5 stars? Do you agree with my gripes about the book? Am I crazy for thinking that way? Let me know. Let's have a discussion about it. But Blackmouth, you need to read it. All right. So I'll see you guys on the next video.